It was a bright Monday morning when Amina stepped through the gates of her new school. The big building looked both exciting and scary. Students were laughing, talking, and walking in groups. Everyone seemed to know each other already, and that made her feel a little out of place. She held her school bag tightly on her shoulder, her heart beating fast. A new school meant a new beginning, but it also meant starting from zero again. New friends, new teachers, and a whole new world to get used to. Amina was 15 years old, with beautiful dark skin and deep brown eyes that showed both kindness and quiet strength. She had recently moved to this city because her father got a new job at a construction company. Leaving her old friends behind was hard, especially since she had grown up in her old neighborhood. Everything there was familiar. Her favorite, park, her karate class, even the old shop near her house where the owner knew her by name. But now all of that was gone. Her new school, Green Valley High, was bigger and busier than her previous one. The students dressed differently, spoke faster, and had their own style of humor. Amina, being naturally calm and polite, didn't rush to talk to anyone. She preferred observing first. That's something she had learned from her karate training. In karate, patience was everything. Her sensei had always told her, "A true fighter listens more than they speak." Those words stayed with her always. During her first class, she sat quietly in the second row. The teacher asked her to introduce herself. "My name is Amina," she said softly. "I just moved here with my family." A few students smiled politely, but most went back to their own conversations. Amina didn't mind. She wasn't expecting instant friendship. She had been through this before, new places, new faces, and she knew it took time for people to open up. At lunch break, she found a quiet spot near the school garden. She opened her lunchbox and began to eat while reading a small book she always carried, The Way of Peaceful Warrior. It wasn't a storybook, but one filled with lessons about strength, peace, and self-discipline. Reading made her feel calm and centered, especially when everything around her was new. From a distance, a few students noticed her sitting alone. Some whispered and laughed. One of them, a tall boy named Jason, pointed at her and said something that made the others laugh louder. Amina noticed but chose to ignore them. She had seen people like that before, loud, confident, and always trying to prove something. She didn't want any trouble. As the days went by, Amina's quiet nature made her stand out even more. Some students thought she was shy, others thought she was arrogant. But the truth was, she simply didn't believe in wasting words. She spoke when necessary and listened when others talked. During group projects, she worked hard and helped others without showing off. Slowly, a few kind classmates began to notice her humble attitude and started talking to her more. One of them was Maya, a cheerful girl who loved sports. "Hey, you're really calm," Maya said one day. "You don't get nervous, do you?" Amina smiled. "Sometimes I do, but I've learned how to control it." Maya was curious. "How do you do that?" Amina replied, "Karate. I've been learning it since I was 5. That was the first time she mentioned her secret. She was a karate black belt. But she said it casually, not to impress anyone. To her, karate wasn't about showing power or fighting people. It was about balance, respect, and mental strength. Her parents had enrolled her in karate classes when she was a little girl, hoping she would learn discipline and confidence. Over the years, it became her passion and a part of who she was. She remembered her sensei's words clearly. "Your greatest fight is not with others, but with your own fears." Every punch, every block, every bow had taught her patience and control. Amina carried that lesson into her daily life. When someone was rude, she didn't react. When people gossiped, she didn't care. She knew her worth didn't depend on anyone's opinion, but not everyone at school understood that calm strength. The group of bullies led by Jason kept watching her from afar. To them, her quiet nature looked like weakness. They didn't know that beneath her gentle smile was years of discipline, training, and silent power. Amina continued her days at Green Valley High, slowly finding her rhythm. She began helping a few classmates with assignments and even joined the art club, where she enjoyed drawing peaceful landscapes. But every time she passed Jason and his group, She could feel their mocking eyes on her. She pretended not to notice, though deep inside, she wished they would stop. One afternoon, while walking to her locker, she heard Jason whisper something cruel about her behind her back. A few students laughed, but Amina kept walking. She reminded herself of what her sensei had said before every tournament. A strong heart does not react in anger. It stays still until the right moment. Amina didn't know it yet, but that right moment was coming very soon. Life had a way of testing people's strength when they least expected it. For now, she stayed calm, holding her books close, walking through the noisy halls of her new school, unaware that soon everyone would see the side of her that no one imagined existed. She was the new girl, quiet, polite, and peaceful, but beneath that calm surface she was also a warrior. And sooner or later, the world around her would find out. Days turned into weeks, and Amina slowly began to settle into life at Green Valley High. She kept her routine simple: attend class, read during breaks, help a few classmates, and then go home. She didn't crave attention or drama. All she wanted was peace to finish school quietly, and to make her parents proud. But peace doesn't always last long in a place where some people mistake kindness for weakness. Jason and his group of friends, Liam, Ryan, and Chloe, had become known around school for their loud jokes and cruel teasing. They picked on anyone different, anyone who didn't fight back. They were the kind of people who laughed the loudest in a crowd but stayed silent when it was time to take responsibility. Amina was different from everyone they knew. She walked alone, never reacted to their whispers, and always carried herself with quiet confidence. To them, that silence looked like fear. They didn't know that silence can sometimes be the strongest form of control. One morning before class, Jason saw Amina sitting under the tree near the school garden, reading again, just like she always did. "There she is," he said, smirking. "Miss Quiet Queen, always pretending she's better than everyone." Liam laughed. "She's weird, man. Always sitting alone. Maybe she's scared to talk to people." "Yeah," Ryan added. "Maybe we should help her open up a bit." They all laughed, and Chloe, who usually watched quietly, giggled too, though she looked uneasy. Deep down, she didn't like what they did, but she was too afraid to speak up against them. That day during lunch, the group decided to walk past Amina's table. Jason intentionally brushed her shoulder as he passed. Her book fell to the ground. Everyone in the cafeteria turned for a moment, sensing trouble. Amina bent down, picked up her book, and said politely, "Excuse me." She didn't shout. She didn't glare. She simply dusted her book and went back to reading. Her calmness almost annoyed Jason even more. "Did you hear that? She thinks she's too good to talk to me," he said loudly, hoping others would laugh. Some did. A few students shook their heads, whispering, he should just leave her alone. But Jason didn't stop. For some reason, Amina's peace irritated him. He couldn't understand how someone could stay so calm when being mocked. The next few days, the teasing grew bolder. They made small jokes about her, whispered rude things when she walked by, and even scribbled notes like "quiet freak" on her locker. Amina saw them, sighed quietly, and removed the papers without a word. At home, she tried not to tell her parents. Her mother always said, "Don't let people's cruelty turn you bitter." Amina listened to that advice. But she also remembered another saying from her karate training: "A warrior avoids the fight, but if the fight comes to her, she stands firm." Every night after finishing her homework, she would practice karate in her small living room. Her movements were smooth and controlled, the sound of her kicks and punches filling the air like music. It wasn't about aggression. It was about discipline. It was her way of keeping her mind strong. One Friday afternoon, everything changed. The hallways were full of students leaving class when Jason and his group spotted Amina again. She was walking alone, her headphones on, smiling softly to herself. She didn't even notice them at first. Jason whispered something to Liam, who grinned wickedly. "Let's see if she's still quiet after this," he said. They walked faster, blocking her path near the lockers. "Hey, Amina," Jason said with a fake smile. "Why are you always alone? Don't you have any friends?" Amina removed her headphones and looked at them calmly. "I'm fine, thank you," she said politely. Ryan laughed. "Wow, so polite. She talks like a teacher." Jason stepped closer, trying to intimidate her. "You think you're too good for us?" he said, his tone turning cold. "Too smart? Too proud? Amina shook her head. No, I just don't like hurting people. That answer caught him off guard. For a second he didn't know what to say, but pride and anger quickly filled the silence. Hurting people? You think you can hurt me? He said with a mocking grin. His friends laughed behind him. The moment was tense and a few students nearby began to watch. Amina stood still, her eyes calm, her body relaxed, but her mind alert. Years of training told her that situations like this could go wrong fast. Jason took another step forward, and before anyone could react, his hand shot out. He seized Amina's collar and yanked her toward him. Gasps filled the hallway. Some students froze. Others pulled out their phones to record. Amina's heart pounded once, hard, but her breathing stayed steady. Time seemed to slow down. Every lesson, every kata, every piece of advice from her sensei echoed in her mind. Stay balanced, stay calm. Control, not anger. Jason didn't realize it yet, but the moment he grabbed her collar, everything changed. He wasn't holding a scared girl anymore. He was holding a trained black belt who had mastered the art of control and self-defense. Her next move would shock everyone who was watching, and in that split second of silence, as the crowd stared, Amina decided it was time to show what real strength looked like. Not loud, not violent, but powerful and disciplined. The hallway went silent. Jason's hand gripped Amina's collar tightly, his knuckles turning white. His friends froze behind him, their laughter fading into uneasy quiet. Amina could feel the roughness of his grip against her neck, but her face remained calm. Too calm. Her eyes didn't show fear, they showed focus. For a few seconds, no one moved. The air felt heavy, like time had stopped. A crowd began to form around them, students whispering, phones raised, waiting for a reaction. Some looked shocked, others curious. They had never seen Amina in the middle of anything dramatic before. She was always the quiet one, the girl who stayed out of trouble. Jason smirked, trying to look tough in front of his friends. What now? He said mockingly. You're not so quiet anymore, huh? Amina didn't answer. She looked straight into his eyes, not with anger, but with something deeper, control. Her training had taught her to see beyond emotion. She was reading him. The way his arm tensed, the uneven breathing, the overconfidence that often came right before a mistake. Her heart was steady. She remembered her sensei's voice echoing in her mind. When danger comes close, do not let fear move your hands. Let discipline move them. Jason pulled her collar again, harder this time. Say something. He shouted, his voice shaking slightly. He expected her to cry, to beg, to show fear, but she didn't. That calmness began to rattle him. Around them, a few students started whispering nervously. Maya, Amina's friend from the art club, pushed through the crowd. Jason, stop it. Leave her alone, she yelled. But he ignored her. He was too caught up in his own act. Amina took a slow breath. Her feet adjusted slightly, barely noticeable. Her left leg slid back a little, her balance shifting, her body ready without looking aggressive. Her eyes stayed on Jason's shoulders, watching his movements closely. He didn't see it, but Amina had entered a defensive stance without even needing to think. Every move came from years of practice. She wasn't planning to hurt him. She just wanted to protect herself. Jason's friends laughed again, trying to ease the tension. Come on, man, she's not worth it, Ryan said, half joking, half nervous. But Jason wanted to show off. He didn't like being challenged, especially not by someone who refused to fear him. You think you're better than me? He said again, his voice louder now, echoing in the hallway. Amina finally spoke, her voice soft but clear. Let go. Her tone wasn't angry, it was calm, steady, almost like a warning. But Jason didn't listen. He tightened his grip even more, jerking her forward. That was the moment everything changed. In a flash, Amina moved. Her right hand came up fast, grabbing his wrist. She twisted her body slightly to the side and applied pressure. Not enough to hurt him badly, but enough to make his fingers loosen. The movement was smooth, quick, almost graceful. Jason gasped in surprise as his grip broke. Before he could react, Amina stepped back and released his wrist, letting him stumble slightly. The crowd gasped. No one had seen exactly what she did, it happened too fast. One moment, Jason was grabbing her. The next, he was standing there, red-faced and speechless, his hand free but aching. What? What was that? Liam muttered, eyes wide. Jason blinked, stunned. He hadn't expected her to fight back, especially not like that. There was no anger in her face, no shouting, no chaos, just calm. She stood straight again, smoothed her shirt collar, and said quietly, "I told you to let go." The entire hallway was silent now. The bullies looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Jason's pride burned, but somewhere deep inside he felt something stronger than embarrassment. He felt respect. For the first time he realized she wasn't scared of him. She didn't even need to be. Maya stepped closer to Amina, her eyes wide with admiration. "Are you okay?" she whispered. Amina nodded. "Yes, I'm fine." Jason rubbed his wrist, still trying to act tough. "You think you're some kind of fighter?" he said, his voice quieter now. Amina met his eyes again. "No," she said simply. "I just know how to defend myself." There was something powerful in her words, something that made even the crowd feel it. She didn't threaten him, didn't brag. She just stood there, composed and unshaken. A teacher appeared at the end of the hallway, shouting, "What's going on here?" The students quickly dispersed, pretending nothing happened. Jason stepped back, muttering, "Nothing, sir," and hurried away with his friends. As they left, Jason glanced back once more. For the first time, he looked unsure, like his whole view of Amina had shifted. When the hallway cleared, Amina picked up her book, the same one that had fallen days ago when he first brushed her shoulder. She smiled faintly, not out of pride but relief. She didn't want to fight. She never did. But sometimes life didn't give her a choice. She walked toward her next class, her steps calm and light. Behind her, whispers followed. "Did you see that?" She didn't even look scared. "She's amazing." Amina didn't care about the attention. All she cared about was that she stayed true to herself, strong, composed, and kind. Because real strength, she knew, wasn't about how hard you hit. It was about how well you control your power. And that day, everyone who witnessed what happened learned exactly that. That night, after everything that happened in the hallway, Amina sat on her bed, replaying the moment in her mind. The look on Jason's face when she broke free wasn't something she would forget easily. It wasn't just shock, it was confusion, almost disbelief. He had expected her to be scared, maybe even cry. But instead she had stood firm and calm, as if she had trained her whole life for that one moment. She stared at her karate black belt hanging on the wall. The soft fabric looked ordinary, but to Amina it was a reminder of every hour she had practiced, every challenge she had overcome, and every time she had chosen control over anger. She whispered to herself, "Sensei was right. The real fight is not with others, it's with yourself." The next morning, school felt different. Whispers followed her everywhere. Some students smiled at her with new respect, while others looked surprised, still trying to understand what had happened. Jason and his friends avoided her eyes, walking the other way whenever she passed. But Amina didn't let any of it change her. She greeted her teachers politely, helped Maya with her art project, and focused on her studies. She didn't want to be known as the girl who fought back. She wanted to be known as the girl who stayed kind even when life wasn't. Still, something in the air told her it wasn't over. When you stand up to bullies, the story doesn't always end with one brave moment. Sometimes it's followed by silence, gossip, and more tests of patience. Later that day, during gym class, the teacher announced a surprise self-defense demonstration. The guest instructor was running late, so the teacher asked if any student had experience with martial arts and wanted to show a few basic moves for safety awareness. The entire class went quiet. A few heads turned toward Amina. Maya nudged her gently. "You should do it," she whispered. Amina hesitated. She didn't want to draw attention. But then she thought about the other students, the quiet ones, the ones who looked away when bullied because they didn't know how to protect themselves. Maybe she could show them that strength didn't always mean violence, it meant confidence. She nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." The teacher smiled, a bit surprised. "Really? That's great, Amina, come on up." A few murmurs rippled through the gym. Jason, sitting at the back with his friends, looked up, confused. He hadn't expected her to volunteer for something like this. Amina stepped forward, her expression calm and steady. She tied her hair back and took her stance on the mat. "Self-defense," she began, her voice clear, "is not about fighting. It's about protecting yourself and staying calm under pressure." The teacher handed her a padded stick used for practice. "Show us how you'd defend yourself if someone grabbed your collar," he said. Ironically, the exact move Jason had used. A few students exchanged looks. Jason froze. Amina nodded. She picked a volunteer, another girl from class, and demonstrated slowly. "If someone grabs you like this," she explained, Don't panic. Use your body, not your strength. Shift your weight, grab their wrist and twist, not to hurt but to free yourself. She showed the move smoothly, step by step, her movements graceful yet powerful. The room was silent except for her calm instructions. When she finished, the students began to clap. Jason's face turned red. He realized the lesson wasn't aimed at him, but somehow it still felt personal. Amina didn't even look his way. She didn't need to. Her actions spoke louder than any words could. When class ended, several students came to her, thanking her for showing them something so simple, yet empowering. One shy boy said, "I wish I was as brave as you." Amina smiled gently. "Bravery isn't about fighting," she said. "It's about staying calm when things get hard." As she left the gym, Jason stood by the door waiting. His friends had already gone. He looked nervous, almost unsure of himself. "Hey," he said quietly. Amina stopped but didn't speak. Jason took a deep breath. "Look, I didn't know you were, trained. I shouldn't have done that. I just thought you were weak." Amina finished his sentence softly. He looked down. "Yeah," Amina's tone stayed gentle. "You don't have to be strong by making others feel small. Real strength is different. You'll understand one day." Jason nodded slowly. He didn't have an answer. For the first time, he felt respect instead of embarrassment. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Amina gave a small smile. "Thank you," she replied and walked away. As she stepped into the bright sunlight outside the gym, a breeze brushed her face. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed deeply. It felt like something heavy had lifted, not just from her shoulders but from her heart. She had faced humiliation, stood up for herself, and forgiven without bitterness. That was her true victory, and from that day on, Amina wasn't just the new girl at school. She was the girl who reminded everyone what real courage looked like: quiet, graceful, and unshakable. The days after the gym class felt lighter for Amina. The whispering in the hallways slowly faded into quiet respect. People who once ignored her now smiled when she passed. Some girls asked her if she could teach them a few karate moves, while others just wanted to talk to her because she made them feel safe. It wasn't fame she wanted. It was peace. And finally, she felt like she had earned a little of it. But life has a strange way of testing people again just when they think the storm is over. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. The hallways were crowded, filled with the smell of wet shoes and chatter. Students hurried to their lockers before the final bell. Amina was one of the last to leave her math class, her books neatly stacked in her hands. She walked calmly through the corridor, the sound of rain tapping gently on the windows beside her. As she turned the corner, she saw Jason and his group again. They were standing by the lockers, laughing loudly, trying to act normal. Amina had no reason to fear them anymore. After all, Jason had apologized. But as she walked past, she noticed something different in his face. It wasn't anger or pride this time. It was guilt. "Hey, Amina," he said softly. She stopped and turned. "Hi," Liam smirked behind him. "Oh, here we go again," he muttered, rolling his eyes. But Jason shot him a look that made him stop. Jason began awkwardly. "I meant what I said last time. I really am sorry. I've been thinking a lot about, how I act." Amina nodded, her expression calm. "It takes courage to admit that," she said. He seemed surprised by her kindness. "Yeah, I guess so." He hesitated, then added, "I'm trying to do better." "Good," Amina said gently. "That's how real strength grows." She smiled faintly and turned to leave. But just as she started walking away, Liam called out loudly, "So now we're listening to her? Since when did you take advice from the quiet girl?" Jason's jaw tightened. "Liam, stop!" Liam didn't stop. He wanted attention. He stepped forward, mocking her calm voice. "Oh, look, it's Miss Karate Queen again. What are you going to do this time? Twist my wrist?" Amina turned slowly, not angry but firm. "You should be careful with your words," she said quietly. Liam laughed. "Or what?" Before anyone could react, he reached out suddenly, pretending to grab her arm, thinking it was all just a joke. But that quick, careless move was all it took. In a split second, Amina's body reacted on instinct. Her training took over, smooth, precise, and fast. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist gently but firmly, and used his own movement against him. With a simple turn of her body, she redirected his force, causing him to lose balance and stumble backward. Not hurt, just shocked. It all happened in one graceful motion. She didn't hit him, Didn't shout, didn't even frown. She simply released his arm and stepped back. The crowd that had gathered gasped again. Jason's mouth dropped open. He rushed forward and helped Liam stand. "You okay?" Liam blinked, still processing what happened. Yeah, she barely touched me." Jason looked at Amina, and this time his expression was different. No anger, no confusion. It was pure respect. "You really are something else," he said quietly. Amina shook her head. "No," she said softly. "I'm just prepared." The teacher on duty hurried over, worried. "What's going on here?" Jason quickly explained. "Nothing bad, sir. She was just showing a reflex move. No one got hurt." The teacher looked suspicious but nodded. "All right, let's keep it peaceful." Bell's about to ring. As the teacher walked away, the tension in the hallway melted into quiet murmurs. Maya came running up to Amina. "I saw that. Are you okay?" Amina smiled. "I'm fine. It was just reflex," Maya grinned. "Reflex? You made him fly." They both laughed softly. Amina's laughter was gentle, but her eyes were serious. "I didn't want to embarrass him," she said. "But sometimes people don't understand until they see what calmness can do." Liam, still red-faced, walked up slowly. "Hey," he muttered, rubbing his wrist. "I didn't mean to. I was just joking." Amina looked at him kindly. "Then maybe next time use words instead of hands. It's safer for everyone." He nodded, embarrassed but thoughtful. "Yeah, okay." The final bell rang, echoing through the hallways. Students rushed out, talking excitedly about what they had just witnessed. But for Amina, the noise faded away. She stood there quietly, looking out the window at the rain. She wasn't proud or angry. She just felt at peace. She had proved once again that real power doesn't come from hurting others. It comes from knowing when not to. As she walked out of school that day, the rain had stopped. The sky was soft and silver, with a few sun rays breaking through the clouds. She took a deep breath, feeling calm and strong inside. Her journey hadn't been about fighting bullies, it had been about fighting her fear, her doubt, and the temptation to lose control. And every time she chose peace over pride, she won a little more. Because strength, she realized, isn't shown in the noise of anger. It's found in the quiet of restraint. After that rainy afternoon, something began to shift at Green Valley High. The story of what happened in the hallway spread faster than anyone expected. Everyone had seen Amina's calm reaction, how she moved like water, soft yet unbreakable. But what truly amazed them wasn't her karate. It was the way she never showed anger, even when pushed. By the next week, whispers turned into admiration. Students who used to walk past her now smiled or waved. Some even asked her how she stayed so calm when others tried to hurt her. Amina would always answer the same way. Because peace is stronger than pride. Jason, who once mocked her, had changed the most. He started spending less time with his old group and more time reflecting on his own actions. His pride had been cracked open, and for the first time, he was learning something valuable, not from a teacher, but from a girl he once tried to bully. One afternoon, during lunch, Jason saw Amina sitting under the tree where everything had begun. The same spot where he had once pointed and laughed. This time, he walked over quietly and sat down across from her. "You always sit here," he said softly. Amina looked up from her book and smiled faintly. "It's peaceful, and the sunlight feels nice here." He nodded, looking at the grass. "You know, I used to think being strong meant being loud, making people fear me. But when I grabbed your collar that day," he paused, embarrassed. "You didn't flinch. That scared me more than anything." Amina closed her book gently. "That's because I wasn't scared of you," she said, her voice calm and kind. "I only feel fear when I lose control of myself, not when someone tries to control me." Jason thought for a moment. "You really believe that?" "I don't just believe it," she said. "I live it. My sensei taught me that strength isn't about power over others. It's about power over yourself." Jason nodded slowly. "I wish I could be like that," Amina smiled. "You can. It just takes patience. Everyone starts somewhere." That short conversation planted something inside Jason. A new kind of respect, not just for Amina, but for the idea of calm strength. From that day on, he stopped picking on people. He even apologized to a few students he had bullied before. It wasn't easy, but he wanted to change. Maya noticed it too. She told Amina one day, "You know, you didn't just teach him a lesson, you changed him." "That's rare," Amina shook her head humbly. I didn't change him. He decided to change himself. I just showed him another way. Word soon reached the school counselor about what had happened. The bullying, the confrontation, the unexpected outcome. Instead of punishing anyone, the school decided to turn the experience into something positive. They started a Respect and Strength Week, where students could share their stories, talk about bullying, and learn basic self-defense. And to everyone's surprise, the counselor asked Amina if she would help lead one of the sessions. At first, Amina hesitated. I'm not a teacher, she said. The counselor smiled. You don't need to be. You've already taught everyone more than you realize. So, on Friday morning, Amina stood on the small stage in the school auditorium. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from emotion. The room was full. Students, teachers, even parents had come to listen. She took a deep breath and began. I never wanted to be noticed. I just wanted to be peaceful. But sometimes peace gets tested. And when that happens, you have two choices. React with anger or respond with strength. She paused, scanning the faces before her. Jason sat in the front row listening carefully. When someone hurts you, Amina continued, it doesn't mean you're weak. And when you defend yourself calmly, it doesn't mean you're violent. It just means you know your worth. Real strength is silent. It doesn't need to shout. The room was quiet. Even the air felt still. Amina smiled gently. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that kindness can be powerful too. Because sometimes the person you forgive ends up learning the biggest lesson of all. The entire auditorium erupted in applause. A few students even stood up. Jason clapped the loudest, his eyes shining with gratitude. When the assembly ended, several students came to thank her. One girl, tears in her eyes, said, You made me believe I can stand up for myself too. Amina hugged her softly. You always could, she said. You just needed to remember it. That day, as she walked home, the sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange. The world felt peaceful again, just like she liked it. She smiled to herself, thinking about everything that had happened. She hadn't just defended herself. She had turned pain into purpose, fear into confidence, and silence into strength. The bullies had learned their lesson. But more importantly, so had everyone else. Because sometimes the strongest voice in the room is the one that stays calm. The week after Amina's speech, Green Valley High didn't feel like the same school anymore. Something invisible had changed. Like a heavy cloud had lifted, leaving the air lighter, kinder, and more open. Students walked the hallways with a new kind of awareness. The laughter was softer, less mocking. The quiet ones no longer kept their heads down, and even the teachers noticed the shift. It wasn't because of a new rule or a punishment. It was because of one girl who had faced cruelty with calm and turned it into courage. Amina became a quiet symbol of strength. She didn't act like a hero. She still sat under the same tree, reading during lunch breaks, smiling at the birds in the breeze. But people saw her differently now. To them, she was proof that being gentle didn't mean being weak. One afternoon, as she packed her books in her locker, Jason walked up beside her. This time, he didn't look nervous. He looked grateful. Hey, he said, I just wanted to tell you things are really different now. You kind of changed everything. Amina smiled softly. I didn't change everything, Jason. Everyone just started seeing differently. He nodded slowly. Maybe, but still. Thank you. For not giving up on people like me. Amina closed her locker and looked at him kindly. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after them. Jason nodded again, this time with a quiet smile. He looked stronger, not because he was bigger or louder, but because he had finally learned humility. In the following weeks, something unexpected began happening. Students who had once been bullied started coming to Amina for advice. Some wanted to learn karate, while others simply wanted to know how she stayed so peaceful when things got hard. She didn't give long speeches or complicated answers. She just shared small lessons from her sensei. Breathe before reacting. Respect your opponent, even when they're wrong. And remember, your greatest strength is not in your fists, but in your mind. Word spread quickly, and soon, the school's counselor invited Amina to help start a Peace and Power Club. It wasn't just about self-defense. It was about emotional strength, kindness, and confidence. At first, only a few students joined. But as weeks went by, the group grew. Even some of the bullies joined quietly, curious to understand what made her so unshakable. Jason showed up one afternoon, standing awkwardly by the door. Amina smiled and waved him in. "You're welcome to join," she said. He nodded shyly and sat in the back. That day, the club discussed forgiveness and how it could heal wounds better than revenge ever could. When Amina spoke, everyone listened. Her words didn't sound like lessons, they sounded like truth. "Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget what happened," she said. "It means you choose peace over pain. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do." Jason looked down at his hands, remembering everything he had done, and quietly whispered, "She's right." Over time, even the teachers started attending the club meetings. What began as a simple student gathering had turned into something bigger, a movement of kindness, self-respect, and change. One day during a school assembly, the principal announced a special recognition for outstanding contribution to school culture. Everyone expected it to go to a teacher or a club leader. But when the principal said Amina's name, the auditorium burst into applause. Amina walked to the stage, her heart pounding. She wasn't used to attention, and she didn't do any of this for awards. But as she looked out at the crowd, all those faces smiling back, including Jason and Maya, she realized that the moment wasn't about her. It was about the message she carried. When the applause finally quieted, she spoke softly into the microphone. "I didn't plan to stand here today. I just wanted peace. But I learned that sometimes when you stand up quietly for what's right, people listen. And when they listen, things change." The audience stood again, clapping louder this time, not for the fight she had won, but for the kindness she had shown. After the assembly, Maya hugged her tightly. "You did it," she said, her eyes shining. Amina smiled. "No," she whispered. "We all did." As the months passed, Green Valley High became known for more than its academics or sports. It became known for its unity, for the way its students supported one another, and every time someone felt afraid or uncertain, they thought of the girl who once stood alone in the hallway, calm in the face of cruelty. The girl who didn't fight to prove she was strong, she proved it by staying peaceful. Amina never let the attention change her. She still practiced karate every evening, still read her favorite books, and still believed that kindness was the highest form of power. Because she knew one truth better than anyone. Real victories don't happen in fights. They happen in hearts.